Hey everyone, welcome back to Shop Life. This is going to be a quick video on how to replace your center support bearing on your E46. This video has just been requested and I'm in the middle of doing one, so I thought it would be a great time just to show the quick process of how I do it. Obviously I already have the drive shaft and everything off. If you want a video on that, I do have a whole video of removing the whole rear end, which goes over that whole process. I'll have it linked down below. But the car that we're actually working on today is a 2001 330 CI. It's also a manual. So the manual and automatic drive shafts are a little bit different. 330 and 325 drive shafts are also a little different. So on the 330, you have like a little shorter of a shaft and you have a bolt that actually attaches the two pieces together. The difference between automatic and manual transmission is just going to be this front half is going to be a little bit shorter or longer depending on which one it is. The back half is the same regardless of automatic or manual because it goes from the center support bearing to wherever it needs to go. If it's a 330, this process is going to be the same regardless of automatic or manual. If it's a 325 or 323, the process is a little bit different, but you'll probably still be able to get the hang of it. And one thing you really want to do is just make sure you see how your bearing is set up, or the actual whole center support. So you can see how there's a part that actually protrudes from the, the whole rubber housing itself. So just like this, you can see how it protrudes right here, and on this side it doesn't. So that side you want to be going towards the front. And then the other side, just the bearing is going to bottom out on the back of the actual back piece of the drive shaft. And another thing you want to do is you want to mark both sides of the drive shaft with like a paint pen because these drive shafts are balanced from factory. So if you put it like 180 degrees, you switch over the whole orientation or something like that, you might get it off balance a little bit. Usually that's not the case, but just in case, might as well do it. Alright, with that being said, now going on with the 330, what we're going to do is we're going to remove this bolt, which is an 18mm bolt. The way I like to do it is get a pry bar and get an 18mm combo wrench. And then what you're going to do is get the wrench on the bolt itself first, like that. And then get your pry bar and slide it underneath the wrench that's prying against the actual bolt itself. And you put your foot right here. Get the wrench and you loosen. This process might take a little bit because even though once the bolt gets loosened, it's still going to be kind of tight. So the whole way you're going to be actually pulling it out. And this is just normal thread. It's not left hand or anything. So just how you would normally loosen a bolt, same process. On the 325s, you're going to have a lot longer shaft where the bearing has to go through. So you actually don't have a bolt. You should be able to just loosen the actual boot cover, whatever it is. Loosen that. It's going to be a little bit bigger and it's going to be on the outside. Loosen that and then you should be able to pull the two halves apart. So you'll see on this, once I get the front half off, that the spline section is actually really short. After a certain point, you won't be able to fit the wrench in there anymore, so just separate the two halves. You should be able to just pull them apart like that, and then you can keep going. The bolt feels like it's really long, but it's actually not. The main reason is just you can't really move it that much between this gap. That's why it takes a little while. Alright, finally got the bolts out. There it is. Now you can separate the two halves just by pulling them apart. There we go. Now you can see the splines coming through. And here is the actual bearing itself. So you can hear this one has a little bit of noise going on with it, and it's really loose. Alright, so now we're going to pull this off. What I like to do is just go at it with the hammer first, just on the sides of the actual bearing. Make sure you don't hit the drive shaft, And if it doesn't like to move, then what you can do is you can start stuffing a chisel or something in this gap. You can stuff a chisel in that gap right here, and that'll start separating it, and then you can just beat it off with a hammer. But you want to make sure you don't hit the drive shaft and you don't hit any of the splines. Well, so the rubber part just broke off. So now we're going to have to use a chisel. There we have it. So the main thing is we need to get the inner race. So you want to try to hit it on there. So once you get past this, you just want to get on there and just try to pry against the actual drive shaft. If you mar it up right here a little bit, that's fine. Just sand it. Just make sure you don't mar up any of the spline sections. There's going to be a little bit of marking right here on the actual metal part of the spline and all that, the shaft, and that's mainly because of, you know, all the wear and tear just over time. Any heat that's stored from it too is going to cause some issues. If any water or moisture got in, it's going to corrode the splines a little bit, but it shouldn't be that big of a deal. Now as far as putting the actual thing back on, so what you can do is you can just use a socket that's the size of this. So I actually just made this whole tool up and then just, you know, it just goes right over there. It goes over the inner part of the bearing because you do not want to hit any part of these seals. You don't want to hit the rubber part, none of that. You just want to hit the bearing, the inner part of it, just that, nothing else. And maybe you don't want to hit anything else because if you do, you're just going to damage it and it's going to not work from the beginning. So the way that is going to go is just like this. So if you do have the longer shaft, then you probably won't be able to use just a socket. So you will have to come up with something like this, or just get a you know, a deep wall socket and just cut the part where you hook up your socket wrench. That way you have enough space to go through all the way. And then you might just have to get a lot of washers that fit over this and then make contact on the actual socket or whatever you're using. So now you just want to get lined up, get whatever tool or whatever you're using. You can also clean up the splines if you have a lot of corrosion with a wire brush. Just make sure you don't damage any of the actual splines itself. Alright, so we've got it all the way bottomed out. You can see it's spinning smoothly. If yours does not spin smoothly, that means you've done something wrong and you're going to need another center support bearing. And it shouldn't make any noise when it's spinning either. Alright, so now we're going to put the other part, the front part of the drive shaft, back together. Once again, just make sure all of the spline is nice and clean. Alright, so now you want to put the washer that popped off, put that in before you put this section in. Yours may or may not have that washer, but if it does, make sure you do put it back in. And now you want to line up the arrows. And you can put some kind of grease, like, you know, what you would use for a clutch job, like one of those spline greases, just so it makes it easier to put on it. You don't really have to. There we go. Get your bolt. Now the trick to getting the bolt seated is you don't want the drive shaft all the way together. You might want to have it a little bit separate, and then you want to use 2 fingers, just try to center it so that you have space from both sides to get the bolt in, and start hand threading it in first. Alright, now that it's nice and tight, you're ready to go back in the car. Some people will notice that their car came with butyl tape, so it's like that black, really sticky tape stuff that's also on the, you know, the window vapor seal barriers. If you have that, you can reapply it. You don't really need to. Some of the E46s actually didn't even have that from factory, so it's not really a necessity. But if you have it and you want to, you know, replicate how it was from factory, you can go ahead and put it on. besides that, that's how you replace your center support bearing. If you have any other video requests, make sure you leave a comment down below. And if I see something that I can film while I'm working on it, I'll go ahead and do that for you. Thanks for watching. Make sure you go check out all of our other social media, the vlog channel and everything. And I'll see you guys in my next video.